Welcome into another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I do believe this is the 100th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, so this is a very special, big-time show here, Mick, a centennial show, so to speak, just like the Boston Bruins had the centennial year. So
just like them.
Let's get it going. That's why I brought Mick Colageo in, my good friend and colleague today. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
I write a weekly Sunday column for BostonHockeyNow.com, and I'm in the seasonal issues of the Hockey News. Thanks for reminding me of the deadline coming up right after free agency, and then the Future Watch, and then let's see what else. I got my Rink Rap blog. I link to it on X, and I go on the radio with Pete Shepard in Florida, and I come here with you. I ride shotgun with Haggs frequently.
There you go. Absolutely, it's been a pleasure every time, Mick. And I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Sign up for a premium membership, get all of my NHL and hockey writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write a few times a week for the Boston Sports Journal. Go to bostonsportsjournal.com and check out all my Bruins coverage there as well. Let's also thank our sponsors. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than in 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll right in. Like if you picked Connor McDavid to go ballistic offensively the last couple of days in the Stanley Cup final, goals, assists, jaw-dropping plays, crazy 2-minute and 28-second shifts that end with him slicing and dicing the entire Panthers team and setting up Corey Perry for a goal. All that stuff, you would be a big winner right now. But if you do want to go to Prize Picks, let me tell you, they are the place to go. You could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. When the finals are over, like they are right now, and the Celtics are winners, the hoop action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is just getting started with young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese just killing each other out there on the court, and everybody's talking about it, looking to make names for themselves. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out.
I wonder if anybody made money on the Red Sox stealing 9 bases on the Yankees.
There you go. See, Mick's into it. Mick's going for stolen bases with the Red Sox, which when Mick and I were growing up absolutely never happened. That was a cardinal sin to try to steal a base for the Boston Red Sox.
You might go for 9 home runs, but you're not going for 9 stolen bags.
No, it was like Tommy Harper, Ellis Burks, Mike Greenwell had a few stolen bases. I think was there anybody else? I can't even think of it.
They had some smart speed at that time, but I go way back.
Dustin Pedroia.
My favorite player was Tony Conigliaro.
Dustin Pedroia is definitely smart speed. He would situationally steal bases for you when it was a smart play to do. But either way, it's a fun and pretty simple system at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And let's also thank Game Time. Game Time's an awesome app. The NBA Finals are over, so you can't get NBA Finals tickets anymore, but the Stanley Cup Finals are still going on. The Boston Red Sox are still going on. So head over to Game Time. Last-minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Zone deals, save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying any kind of tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Mick. Let's get into it. A little bit of news, some things, some dribs and drabs coming out with the Boston Bruins. So, a Swedish outlet was quoting Oskar Steen's agent that he is moving on. The Bruins and Oskar Steen are parting ways. He's a Group 6 free agent. He had 1 goal in 34 games before getting waived and sent down to Providence last year. He's got like 60 games, I think, at the NHL level, 4 goals, 8 points overall. Obviously, I think he's done well as a 6th-round pick, a former 6th-round pick of the Bruins. I think if you can get a player that can hit the NHL at all with you as a 6th-round pick, I think you're doing pretty well as far as selecting that guy. But I think this makes sense. Like Jacob Lauko is a better option as a homegrown, drafted and developed fourth line kind of player. I think he just couldn't get over the hump offensively and really even sporadically create offense in the fourth line role. He was perfectly fine when he was there, but not enough to stick at the NHL level. Maybe he can find a fresh start somewhere else.
You also got the distinct impression that when Steen finally did get a chance, a glittering chance, it was no way that thing was going in.
No.
And so, and then I think the thing that where I kind of made my own decision that he's not a plug-in for the Bruins in the bottom six was when he started getting knocked off the puck late in the season. Might have been the playoffs. I'm having trouble parsing it all out right now. But I do remember there was scenarios where Steen was trying so hard to keep up with the frenetic pace of the late season hockey that he would be off balance trying to initiate. Yeah. And that's when somebody would say, here's a big chance to hit this fire hydrant because he's put himself off balance. And that's when he get knocked off the puck or knocked down or whatever, because he was trying so hard to make something happen offensively that he made himself, took himself a little off balance and made himself vulnerable to timely hits. And I think that that's when it became apparent that Steen, as a guy who could plant, and good luck trying to knock him over with those truncated, not truncated, but tree trunk thighs of his, quad muscles, unbelievable physique on that kid. Yeah. And really terrific character, terrific for the P Bruins. It's time, guys age out of the process, and, Group 6 says it all. They've had the leverage the whole time, and now he's a free bird and he's going to fly, and good for him. I hope it works out wherever he goes.
Yeah.
He's back home.
Yeah. Could go back to Sweden, definitely. I would think, though, if he's logged some NHL time, he'll be a depth player somewhere to start, and maybe, he can find, lightning in a bottle somewhere, or he can find that next level offensively that he couldn't get here. But for my analysis, my watching him, my seeing him over the years, I think he's just one of those classic players that can excel at the AHL, can be a very good AHL player, but just wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough, all these things combined, that you have to be at the NHL level to be really effective. And it was tough because he was put in a fourth line role where they wanted him to bang bodies, forecheck, check the other team, not look as much for the offense. And Lauko kind of struggled this year offensively as well.
You say all that, I think Chris Bork.
The name that we were trying to think of, the other, Alex Koklachev. That's another one. Koko's another one.
Koko's a good example of that, yeah.
Who was a very good AHL player that just when he came up to the NHL.
I do wonder if the Bruins blew it with, I don't want to say blow it because they have a process and this kid didn't want to engage it. But the other Russian that was there prior to Koko and another generation beforehand, I'm having trouble coming up with his name right now. But he went on to become a general manager in the KHL and had a very good KHL career. But in Boston, he didn't have the patience for the process. And, my league at home is better than this league. What am I doing here? And he kind of shot his way out of town. And it's kind of too bad that it worked out that way, because I think Zinoviev maybe? No, mm-hmm. I might have been, Sergei Zinoviev, I think is my guy.
Yeah. And there's no shame in that. The NHL is the hardest league in the world. And there are some players that just don't have that sort of, that thing that's going to allow them to excel against the fastest, biggest, most skilled, strongest guys, hockey players in the world. And they can do it at the AHL level, but they just, for whatever reason, and some of it is opportunity and, where they're playing with a team. And if you're playing fourth line role every single time you go up to another team, maybe you're not going to be able to show everything you do, especially if you're not a fourth line player. I'm not sure Oskar Steen is really a fourth line player when he's at his best or he's in the right role. So maybe he gets, some top 6 minutes with somebody else, and or a third line even with somebody else, and can show a little bit more offensively. But
guys in the NHL who are in those roles tend to have extraordinary size, strength, or speed.
Yep.
Steen, I think you can argue has a strength, but he doesn't have the size, vertically at least, and he doesn't have extraordinary speed.
No, and the skill to finish too. When he did get chances, like you said, you knew it wasn't going in when he had
knew it wasn't going. Like the end of Ken Dryden's great book, The Game. that he wrote about the 78-79 Canadiens, which was the last of their 4 straight Stanley Cup runs in that decade. In the end of his career, he chronicled their season and all the personalities involved on the team bus and all of that. And the Steve Shutt part's hilarious. But he talks about, he starts out with talking about a player that is never going to score. He finishes the book with an anecdotal breakaway. He didn't score.
The goalies always know.
PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. The way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. Whether it's playoff basketball, whether it's Major League Baseball, soon enough, football will be here in the fall. But you can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're totally locked in. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chances of getting a win, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the PrizePicks app today. Super easy to use, easy to download. And use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Let's talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Final, Mick. Outstanding Game 5 last night. Very entertaining from beginning to end. You knew Florida was going to come back, and they did, and they almost pulled it off. It was one of those games where I think time ran out on the Panthers. If they'd gotten enough chances, they were going to tie that game, and it just didn't happen before they had to pull the goalie. But just a great game both ways. That sequence at the end where Tkachuk is laying out, saves the empty net goal from going in, and then it ends up going right to McDavid, and he bangs it in for the empty net goal. And, all of the action that was going on leading up to that. That was a true Stanley Cup Final game where you felt like it was the 2 best teams playing against each other. Connor McDavid pulled off another absolute superstar, best hockey player in the world kind of performance. That's 2 in a row for him. And honestly, I feel like the only way Edmonton's going to win games from this point forward in this series is if Connor McDavid is that good in every single game and that productive, because Draisaitl just doesn't look like himself. Looks like he's having issues out there. So Connor McDavid's going to have to be that good. But really interested to see what's going to happen in Game 6 in Edmonton. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely crazy out there. I couldn't get enough of the middle-aged woman that was in the crowd in Edmonton watching the game on the big screen somewhere last night. And she was dressed up like the Stanley Cup and had like silver all over her with the like dish on her head.
I didn't see that.
Oh my God. The people out in Edmonton are just nuts. And you can see
the other viral video that I saw.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Which we'll never speak of.
No, but in general, the Oilers fans are nuts, so it's going to be a great atmosphere for Game 6. And I'm glad that, A, it's been extended this long, so it's been an actual hockey series to watch with dramatic games, and B, that we've been able to see Connor McDavid excel and shine as much as he have on this big stage to show everybody in the world just how good he is if they don't watch enough Edmonton games. Like that play last night, the end of a 2.5-minute shift, where he goes through everybody, goes right through the heart of the Florida Diamond, the defense, and then feeds it to Perry and knows Perry's coming, even though Perry just jumped off the bench and was trailing the play. Like that is just like an amazing play.
And it was if you're not old enough, like some of us who got to hang from the rafters, 1 foot on the last row of the second balcony at Boston Garden, 1 foot on the railing in front of it, as those balconies had rails in front of every row. And then you were high enough up to hold on to the I-beam of the ceiling girders and look over the 5 rows in front of you and all the way down and watch Bobby Orr. Yep. And McDavid had a play like this against the Rangers a few years ago where he regrouped in the middle of the rink. It looked like his shift was going to be over. Instead of regrouping, dumping the puck, he identified a situation where he's going to surprise them with acceleration, sudden acceleration. And this is something I haven't seen since Bobby Orr.
Yep.
There have been great players, even in Orr's era, that I just marveled at watching them carry the puck at top flight. And skills at top flight. Gilbert Perreault, almost unparalleled. But what McDavid does, and changing gears and going into sudden acceleration mode at the identification of an opportunity, and then suddenly you got 4 bowling pins, and there's this guy who's going through them like it's a skills contest. If you didn't get a chance to see Bobby Orr play, this is the same way Don Cherry was calling Cam Neely a direct descendant to Gordie Howe in '88 when he was running over the Montreal Canadiens on the forecheck. This is Bobby Orr as a centerman. This is what you're looking at here. It isn't the whole game. It isn't the whole game he played, but it in that aspect of the attack and what made Orr a unique attacking defenseman, this is that element, that acceleration, identification, and then the execution ability and the fierceness of his competitive fire. That just is what the offensive element of Bobby Orr's game was. And seeing McDavid, being around to see McDavid is a thrill because he is a very exciting player to watch. The quickness is incredible. That he does it like you said, at the end of a lengthy shift like that. That's just really unheard of in today's game.
Yep.
I mean,
and it's not, Mick, it's not even just the stick handling and the speed, right? It's the shot, it's the playmaking, it's the hockey IQ. He has everything. Like, he has the whole package of everything. He decided he wanted to get 100 assists this season, and he was just going to make plays for everybody else. And he was going to scale back the goals that he scored, and he did it. He can do whatever he wants to do on the ice. He has those kind of gifts and those kind of hard-earned skills, because that he's a guy that just goes out there and works his ass off to be the best hockey player in the world. But even the goal that he scored earlier, where he finds a little opening where he can shoot it off the skate in Bobrovsky's skate and get it into the net as he's moving full speed and going through people, and all that chaos is going around, and he's picking a spot where to shoot. Like, all of those gifts were on display last night. And for me, watching hockey, there's nothing more exciting than when you watch a player that is on for an entire game, and you know that every time he gets the puck, he's going to be in absolute danger, and the other team is going to be worried about what he's going to do, and he's going to enforce his will, and he's going to show that skill every time he has the puck. McDavid was that last night. He was that the game before as well. And like I said, he's going to need to be that in Game 6 and 7 if Edmonton's going to have a chance to win against Florida. Because Florida, I thought, even though they fell behind with the shorthanded goal, they fell behind by 3 goals. When it was 5-on-5, they were doing their forecheck thing. I thought they were controlling play. They just made a few mistakes that ended up losing them the game. So it's going to be great to watch Game 6 and 7.
Well, one thing that, the turnover that led to the Brown shorty, I think that Florida likes to play at a high pace in the attacking zone after they set up. They like to move the puck quickly and try to get the defense to say, hey, this is getting chaotic. We're going to go out of our structure and we need to stop. And then once they get that, then they get what they want. And I think what Edmonton has done here is leverage Florida into playing it faster than they want to. And I think that's increased Florida's sloppiness. And so for Knobloch and that group of athletes to have a competitive answer to the Florida Panthers in this series that has turned what was a potential sweep into a nail-biter it's awesome. It's amazing that they've managed to do this. And whatever happens from here on in, I can't wait to see it. It's amazing what's going on right now and how Florida suddenly has a real grind on their hands. And that's what makes this series really something. And I'm glad we have it. It's going to be a great finish, whatever it is.
Absolutely. I hope we have 2 more games like last night, because that was great. I was watching it with Finn. He was into it the whole game and just watching everything that was happening and recognized just how high level the hockey was and how everybody was just going all out every shift. Matthew Tkachuk, great game for him last night. Best game of the finals as well.
Yeah, that was such a quick turnaround for him to get that puck in the top corner it like that. That really just turned the game and made, a situation that was falling apart for them turn into all right, here we go. Plenty of time.
And that's what you would expect by any team that's in the Stanley Cup final, right? They can turn a 3-0 deficit into them coming back and pushing hard like they did.
Are you excited for the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics? You should be. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all kinds of stars. How cool would it be to actually go to one of the games at TD Garden and watch the Celtics? My friends, we've got an option for you. Game Time will help you get those tickets. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You pick out any specific games or matchups that you love to attend, and you get good deals for those tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals and on select seats ahead of the game or event. The all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at the checkout. And don't you hate the surprise fees? Props to Game Time for no surprise fees. All right, so take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We've got a couple of emails or tweets or whatever, Mick, so let's answer those while we're here. And this one is about a little news too that you and I haven't discussed yet. This is from Roger Perry. Hi, Joe. I heard the Bees recently made some coaching changes. Can you please give your thoughts on what is changing for the coaching staff this year and what those changes mean for Jim Montgomery and Bob Essenza's future? I don't know what Bob Essenza has to do with any of the changes that they made, but it's thank you, love the podcast, Roger Perry. I kind of went over my thoughts on this last week, but Mick, your thoughts on Jay Leach being added to the coaching staff, on Joe Sacco being bumped up to associate coach, and some changes happening with the Bruins. John McClain obviously going back to skating and skills, which is more his background anyway than being an assistant coach on the bench. Just what you make of all those changes.
Well, Leach's availability and the Bruins' willing interest in bringing him back into the fold where they developed him. He was a P Bruins coach. That's where he P
Bruins head coach. Yes.
Yeah. And so he was terrific in that role, and his NHL opportunities came elsewhere, and necessarily the way things go in this business. So for the Bruins to say, hey, we can get this guy back, then they want him.
Yep.
Should Jim Montgomery be worried? No. I think that they should be thrilled that they have capable people assisting, and they have a very team-oriented approach about what they do. And I think that any of these guys, I believe the cliche that the pressure's there from within is greater than anything going on without. And the highly competitive people who really excel in this business and are so thoughtful in every little thing that they do, they're thrilled to have any help. Now, yeah, sure. Bruce Cassidy gets promoted, works with Claude Julien, replaces Claude Julien. We see it over and over again.
Well, the one thing, Nick, the one thing I would interject, and you're walking down this path, is that I think the Bruins view Jay Leach as an NHL head coach in the making. Right. I think they definitely view him in that light.
Same way they did Cassidy.
Yes, he was considered for the job when Montgomery ended up getting it after he had left for Seattle. He was one of the candidates that got mentioned along with Dave Quinn and a few other people. So I do think he is kind of the very logical sort of ready-made replacement if anything did happen with Jim Montgomery during the season. But to your point, if you've had the success that Jim Montgomery's had the last two regular seasons, if you made a progressive step in the playoffs like you did last spring, I think you're feeling pretty good and secure about the job that you're doing. But they're always going to – as a coach, there's always going to be, potential replacements or whatever.
Oh, absolutely, because the worst thing a guy can do in this business, is we've seen over and over again. San Jose had a great example of this back, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, but you get better, you get better, you get better, you get better, and you're getting close, and then you back off one step. You may be this much higher than when the guy took the job But the fact that you took one step back after being all the way up here, they say, think we got to make a change. It happens all the time. So that's the business they chose. They know. I once asked Peter Laviolette, full disclosure, he married my cousin's daughter. So we see each other at weddings, funerals, and cookouts. So charity golf tournaments. So I asked him once about the whole deal with Paul Maurice. Paul Maurice got canned by the Hurricanes right before the lockout year. Before the season ended, Laviolette becomes the coach. Come back after the lockout year, they win the Stanley Cup in Carolina. By the 08-09 season, Laviolette's struggling, gets fired. Who do they hire back? Paul Maurice goes to the conference final, beat the Bruins in that famous 7-game overtime. Yep. And so I asked him, I said, what is it like between you and Paul Maurice? He goes, oh, no, we get along well. We have a lot of respect for each other. I said, you guys just trade houses then when you're back? He goes, oh, no, we're not that tight.
That's funny. But bottom line with this is Jay Leach is a good coach. I think he's very good working with defensemen. I think he could be really good with Mason Lowry, working with him this year.
Hell yeah.
I feel like also they needed to make some kind of change after all those too many men in the ice penalties, whether it was somebody's fault or not. I felt like some kind of change was needed or some kind of accountability.
So McLean's a scapegoat.
Well, I don't even think that though, because
I know,
like he's back in the role that he's, I think, best at now, and he's great as a skating skills guy, a guy running practices, a guy working with the rehab players, a guy working with your young players. I think he in the Kim Brandvold kind of role, I think, is where he's best served, and I think he's going to do that now, which was what he was, hired for in the first place. So, maybe, I think the year of assistant coaching experience in the NHL was great for him, and maybe he pursues that even more in the future after getting a taste of that. But
I think Joe Sacco gets a little bump here, and a title, and but it also makes me wonder, what's the end game for Joe Sacco?
Yeah.
Had a brief NHL experience coaching the Colorado Avalanche, similar to Bruce Cassidy when he had the Caps, and it didn't work out for him for reasons that are obviously where the team was at, and teams just keep on making changes till they get what works, and usually has a lot more to do with the player personnel than anything else. And he never got back to where Cassidy got back to. So his route has been to be an assistant in Boston. And
maybe he's this generation's Doug Huda.
I don't know.
He's there through multiple coaching administrations, and he sticks around as an assistant coach and is, an important piece.
Maybe life is good, and he doesn't want to ride that carousel. Maybe
he's from here. Maybe he just enjoys being home and having an NHL job.
It's a little more like a college coaching career. If you can weather the storm of the only thing that wouldn't, the one thing that gets everybody kicked out is if Don Sweeney's tenure finds its end. And we're not there yet, but I do think that this offseason and what he does with Omar and the cap space, and it's highly competitive when you see that Philip Hronek there just got 7 and change on a long-term deal to stay with the Canucks. He's a really good player, but was he on your radar for 7+?
No. That's a lot of money.
So that's how, to me, that's an opening salvo of July 1 and how competitive it's going to be to get the players that you have at the top of your list, which probably means that the Bruins are going to have to be very careful about what they do.
Yep. Oh, no, of course. I mean, they need to be careful, Mick, but they also need to be bold, I think. They need to, make big moves. Like they can't be doing what they've done the last couple of years, which is acquiring middle-class NHL players and thinking that all they need is another third-line forward and, a center that...
We want to add to our depth, quote-unquote.
A center that's been a third-line guy that they think can be a first-line. No, you need to get legit elite NHL talent with the salary cap space that they have that you think is going to elevate everybody else. And they need, I've said this a bunch, they need another primary scorer. They need another guy that drives the action when he's on the ice among their forward group.
So does that put a guy like Marchessault on their radar because he's a line driving winger, a la Marchand, a la Pasternak?
Maybe. I mean, I think anybody that is that kind of talent, I think, is what they should be looking at and considering. Whether it's Reinhart, whether it's Marchessault, if they really like Elias.
I feel
Lindholm.
As much as Reinhart had a career year, I look at him and I think the Panthers elevate him. I don't feel like he elevates the Panthers as much as he is the byproduct of how they play and the opportunities that come his way. Now, granted, can't sneeze at a guy who has the capability of turning those situations into gold 57 times.
Yeah, here's the thing, Mick. You need that team in particular, that Bruins team, needs people that drive the action, but also needs people that are willing to shoot the puck and score.
Well, he's willing to shoot the puck and score.
They do not have enough players.
He can score the hockey puck.
They do not have enough players that have the tunnel vision about like shooting the puck and scoring and being a little selfish sometimes in order to get the puck in the back of the net. And I think he's that kind of player. And I think that's where he could help a lot of other players that are more than happy to just move the puck along.
I feel like he's going to get a price tag though that is not that I don't think he'll hold up to.
But you know what though, Mick, you're going to have to overpay to get a guy that can put the puck in the net. Like whether it's him or somebody else. They're going to have to overpay a little bit. They're probably going to have to give more money than they're comfortable with, and it's going to like change their salary structure a little bit. But you know what? They have the money to spend. They need to go out and spend it on somebody. Now, there's some, we can like talk about fantasy scenarios too with the Brady Kachucks of the world, or you can talk about Martin Necas as a trade, and there's a lot of different ways they can go. So we're just talking mostly about free agent guys, but I think there's going to be a whole world of possibilities given the salary cap space that they have. And given some of the assets they have to potentially move around.
I wonder if they've cooled on Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because or are they thinking more opportunistically about him because they're thinking, hey, we might be able to get him at a lower price than what people thought 6 months ago.
Yeah, I see, but this is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want Don Sweeney to pretend he's shopping at Building 19 and a half for the best bargains this summer. That is not the mentality that he should have.
Was that the one in your area? I think we had Building 19 and 3/4.
The one was the Burlington, Building 19 and a half.
Okay.
Were you near Building 19 and 7/8? Is that
I was 3/4.
3/4. But like that is, I do not want him to be clipping the Sunday paper coupons on July 1st when he's tracking down free agents, because they have freaking $20 million. They might have like $25, $26 million if Linus Ullmark finds a new home. Like, this is no time to be bargain hunting and bargain shopping for players. They need to get players that can be difference makers. That's what they need to go out and do.
Yeah, he was an all-star bottom feeder last summer out of necessity. Yeah. Just a tremendous job that he did in that situation. But it's also his strength. This one comes with more pressure.
Yeah, but he's very good at that too, Mick. That's like one of his strengths, I think. And that management strengths is finding those players, those diamonds in the rough, or those guys that are sort of underutilized other places that come in here and for a good price tag come in and really perform well. Like, they're very good at that. But they need to stretch what they're able to do, maybe get a little uncomfortable this summer and spend that money on players and take risks where you can come in and somebody's going to pay off big time and be a huge performer for you. And you're going to have to probably overpay for a player or two like that.
Do you think that they're going to prioritize the center position?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, I think they have to get somebody in, especially if they think Zach is a winger and they can move Charlie Coyle down to second line center, bring somebody in that can be that like front
and then
line
you develop in Patra the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the best way to do it, is have two frontline guys like that, maybe have him slide down to third line center as he's learning on the job and he's healing and whatever. But I think he's got the talent that eventually he'll be up there too, but I don't think he's quite there yet. JJ Lopalato says is close to seeing, and this, you touched on this earlier, but this reinforces it. He said is close to seeing Bobby Orr split D or being a D-man was the difference, but McDavid is easily the greatest on O. His dominance in controlling the last two games is Orr-like, and I never put anyone in that category. Remember, Gretzky's teams were loaded.
Gretzky is the best player I've ever seen at using the other four skaters on the ice.
Yep.
A lot of players have been great at that. Gretzky's not the first centerman to pull up at the top of the circle and curl back and look for the trailer.
Yep.
He might be the first player I've ever seen run a power play from below the goal line, but just his innovative, creative mindset and not being hampered by traditional ways of thinking. And, that is really where his superstardom was. Athletically, he was good.
Yep.
It was up here where he was all world. And, I think the game has become more and more difficult to transcend with all of the coaching and video and thinking and thoughtfulness that goes into playing. I also think that stifles creativity. So Boston has a wonderful talent in David Pastrnak, who invents hockey every time he goes down the ice. He's a little like Mark Savard in that regard. They just have original thoughts and do it their way, and it's fun to watch him really discombobulate opponents. The way he picked apart the Carolinas man-to-man one night was hilarious. He just goes toward a guy, and they shift him what they do. He goes to the other guy, he gets them confused, and next thing you know, he's roofing the puck. And it's like, they're like, what just happened? I mean, the special players come along once in a blue moon. It's fun to watch them play because they kind of take all the thinking that goes on behind the bench and turn it on its ear. And McDavid does this with a combination of unprecedented explosive speed on his skates. And I remember seeing great skaters, and when as a kid, Yvon Conway blowing his way down the ice. I mentioned Perreault out of La Turn, one of the most powerful skaters I've ever seen, or obviously with his ability to change speeds and never be caught. But McDavid makes hockey fun in the traditional sense of just seeing a guy who just goes out there with pure joy and just completely loves the game and has the ability to make special things happen because of his extraordinary talent. And his confidence to use it. It's just hilarious and fun to watch. So glad we have him around. So glad I'm around to watch him play, and to stir the drink of the series. That I love.
No, this was people were talking about how this was like a disaster scenario for the NHL because Florida's a non-traditional Sun Belt team, not a huge market down there, and Edmonton obviously is in the hinterlands of Alberta and a Canadian team, and that, media-wise, it wasn't going to be as big a draw as some other things. And there's no way that's true because they got Connor McDavid, the face of the entire league, into the biggest showcase that the NHL has, the Stanley Cup final, and he's doing his thing. He is showing off for everybody. He's showing how good he is, and casual hockey fans watch the Stanley Cup final, and a lot of them are probably getting introduced to this greatness because they don't watch many Edmonton Oilers games for one of the first times. So, and it brings out the best in a player like that when he's playing for a cup and he's this close. So it's been fun to watch, and I'm glad he's there as well. And hopefully, like I said, the last game or two of that series lives up to what we saw in Game 5 because that was just awesome playoff hockey. Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's fun and really simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Don't also forget about Game Time. Great place to get all of your tickets. You get baseball tickets. You can still get Stanley Cup final tickets if you want to wing your way out to Edmonton in a couple of days to watch that last game. Take the guesswork out of buying any tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first time using Game Time. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else out there, thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.